There is no arguing that Makoto Shinkai will go down in history as one of the greatest anime artists of our generation. There are so few other names that stand as tall as his, and although often compared to Miyazaki, Shinkai's work could not be more different. And it is in this difference that made such a monumental influence on anime as we know it. Where Miyazaki's films aim to transport you into another world to escape from the problems of our own, Shinkai works to ground you as firmly as possible into reality. My passion for anime and Japanese culture as a whole can easily be traced back to one single moment, when I stumbled onto a blog post comparing the locations from Eurocamp, one of my favorite animes at the time, to their real-life counterparts. This completely changed the way I watched anime, and it was that very same day that I started planning my own trip to Japan, which would eventually become the first season of the anime expedition, and create my now dream to move there someday. Recounting this chain of events, I became curious about just how anime got to this point, where nearly every external location is a photo-accurate representation of a real-world place. Obviously, we can't talk about Makoto Shinkai, or real-life anime for that matter, without mentioning Your Name, which not only further popularized anime in the West, especially in the non-shonen category, but it was also one of the first times an anime location has gone viral, causing hundreds if not thousands of fans to fly across the globe in order to visit the iconic staircase. And if you visited the steps for yourself, you'd know that there's a map left there that directs you to more Your Name locations all across Tokyo. And just like that, countless anime expeditions, or pilgrimages if you prefer, had begun. But the incredibly beautiful and shockingly accurate scenes from Your Name were by no means the first time an anime has borrowed from reality. Curious about the origin, I began my research right back at the beginning, and quickly realized that it actually hadn't always been this way. For a multitude of reasons, 1950s Japan was not exactly in need of slice-of-life entertainment, and instead used anime as a form of escapism. It wasn't until the 1980s that anime and manga became a tool to promote tourism, which I plan to make an entirely separate video on in the future. But shows like Ninja Hattori-kun, Slam Dunk, and Captain Tsubasa began actively using real city names and featuring major landmarks like Captain Tsubasa did with Fujisan. The first episode aired in 1983 and was essentially an advertisement for Shizuoka.
この町は背後に霊峰富士を仰ぎ太平洋に面した入り江を持つ静かなところにあるが
But although set in real places, these anime were still far from photo accurate, and more used reality as a starting point to inspire their cartoon worlds. Fast forward to 1992 when the first episode of Sailor Moon aired, which is largely credited as the origin of the anime expedition phenomenon. But given the crude art style and overtly magical world, although right on the edge of reality, it does not give off the impression of being traced over a real photograph, which to me is what makes modern anime so unique. Throughout the 90s, several more anime followed suit, from Evangelion's Tokyo 3 to Serial Experiment Lane's stylized rendition of Shibuya, which, in my opinion, was the most accurate imagery of any anime up until this point. But while Triangle staff was hard at work trying to figure out the meaning behind their own enigmatic story, Makoto Shinkai was holed up alone in his tiny Tokyo metropolitan apartment, shaping the future of anime as we know it today. Makoto Shinkai is one of the most consistent artists I've ever seen. Not only does every single one of his films have an incredibly similar theme, but he also somehow managed to find a unique art style for his debut film and has stuck with it ever since. Something pretty much unheard of for artists. In 1998, Shinkai released his first ever short film, which was entirely self-produced, using nothing but his own illustrations, Lightwave, and Adobe After Effects for 3D compositing. The film was titled Toi Sekai, or Other Worlds in English, and it's surprisingly reminiscent of his modern work. He completed Toi Sekai in only 2 weeks. It is 1.5 minutes long, black and white, and depicts a rather somber or melancholic couple living in a small Tokyo apartment. Oddly enough, the film features the very same song that I used in my first ever short film. I guess great minds think alike. And totally not because there are so few good options in the public domain. After endlessly searching, I did manage to find one of the real locations that Shinkai used as a model. So although not confirmed, I do think it's pretty fair to assume the rest of the locations are real as well. especially given how similar in style Toei Sekai was to his next film. In 1999, Shinkai released a film that would put his name on the map, Kanojo to Kanojo no Neko, She and Her Cat. Due to hardware limitations, he was still working in grayscale, but the 5-minute short does wonders at showcasing Shinkai's style, from his portrayal of weather to the way he meticulously showcases Tokyo. It is the first time that his use of real photography shines through, drawing incredibly accurate depictions of real locations. 3 years later, Shinkai comes out with Hoshi no Koe, or Voices of a Distant Star, which took the world by storm, winning a ton of animation awards, and in my opinion, laid the groundwork for all of his future work. Despite the film's science fiction setting, Shinkai somehow managed to tether the viewer to the ground, where we looked up at the stars in awe. This is the first of Shinkai's films where he began to claw beauty out of the most mundane everyday sights and put them on display from a perspective only he can capture. Fast forward only 11 short years, and technology had finally caught up to Shinkai's vision, and he was able to begin blurring the line between animation and reality in Koto no Ha no Niwa, The Garden of Words, which for the first time transported foreign audiences right into Japan through his depiction of the Shinjuku Gyoen National Garden. By this point, Shinkai was already a household name as far as anime is concerned, and known for his unique, realistic style referred to in Japan as Shinkai World. But did he invent this level of anime realism? Well, not necessarily. It appears to me that this was the direction anime was trending at the time. While directors like Satoshi Kon, Ryutaro Nakamura, and Junichi Sato inched towards more accurate drawings, Makoto-san was boarding the non-stop Shinkansen to photorealism, and I truly believe that he was one of the artists pioneering this transition. Especially when up until this point, the idea behind anime had been to spark wonder in the audience by showing them things they could only see in their wildest imagination. So at this point, you might be wondering why this trend of preserving snapshots of reality into animation is so special to me, and I like to think many other people, when surely live-action filmmaking has been accomplishing the same idea for decades? Well, not really. Due to artistic conventions, established laws, and budget limitations, the vast majority of filmmakers do everything in their power to either make entirely original sets or pass off imitations as the real thing. So yes, you could take an expedition to where Godzilla fought Muto, or Sonic went fast, or even where Deadpool fought Juggernaut, but when you turn around, don't expect to see the Statue of Liberty, because it's over 2,000 miles away, and you're actually just at an abandoned mental hospital in Canada. Contrast that with most anime, where what you see is exactly what you get. The artists don't just choose locations to imitate, they base the entirety of the story around a single real town, adding an incredible level of character and realism to the anime. And every location the characters visit has to actually be within travel distance, or else it breaks the rules of the world. And I believe that Shinkai played an important role in popularizing this method of storytelling, to the point where nowadays, using a fictional location in an otherwise grounded story is the exception rather than the rule. Not only does Shinkai's style enhance the story, but it also finds charm in the most isolated small towns and manages to spread the exact feeling of what it would be like visiting there to every corner of the earth, and inspires people like me to board a plane, fly across the ocean, hop on a train, rent a car, and drive around literally just to visit a random staircase, train station, overpass, campground, park, school, bridge, or tree. All thanks to Shinkai and the rest of the anime industry for their passion to blur the lines between animation and reality. If you want to experience what it was like to visit all these anime locations, you can click on the playlist here. And if you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing so that you don't miss any of my future videos.